Take a deep breath. Right now, your lungs are doing something incredible. They're filtering out microscopic dust, moving oxygen into your blood, and keeping you alive using a defense system that took hundreds of millions of years to perfect. For any animal on Earth, smoke is the ultimate warning sign. It means danger, it means fire, it means run. If a forest fire breaks out, every creature flees the fumes because inhaling smoke triggers an immediate, suffocating panic. Except for one. Somewhere along the line, a single species of primate looked at a burning pile of toxic plants, walked directly toward the smoke, and decided to pull it deep into their lungs. Today, billions of people smoke or vape, treating it as a mundane, everyday habit. But from an evolutionary standpoint, smoking is one of the most unnatural, bizarre, and downright defiant things a living creature can do. So how did we get here? When did ancient humans first decide to breathe fire, and what were they looking for in the smoke? To understand when this started, you have to look at the chemistry of the plants themselves. Plants like tobacco and cannabis didn't evolve their active compounds to give humans a good time. Nicotine is a highly potent neurotoxin. The tobacco plant produces it for one specific reason: to paralyze and kill insects that try to eat its leaves. For millions of years, it worked perfectly. But when humans entered the picture, our massive, complex brains hijacked that defense mechanism. Because our neurochemistry is different from a caterpillar's, a dose of nicotine that would paralyze a bug instead triggers a flood of dopamine and adrenaline in the human brain.
It sharpens focus, dulls hunger, and calms anxiety. We turned a plant's poison into our medicine. For a long time, historians believed that smoking was a relatively recent phenomenon, developing alongside agriculture just a few thousand years ago. But archaeology keeps pushing the clock back, revealing that our relationship with smoking is deeply woven into the very fabric of our species. In 2021, archaeologists digging in the Great Salt Lake Desert in Utah made a staggering discovery. Hidden inside an ancient hearth used by hunter-gatherers, they found 4 charred seeds of the wild tobacco plant. When they carbon dated the charcoal around the seeds, the results shocked the scientific community. The seeds were 12,300 years old. This was thousands of years before anyone in the Americas was farming. These were nomadic people living at the end of the last ice age. They weren't growing tobacco, they were actively foraging for it in the wild, bringing it back to their campsites and tossing it into the fire. The evidence shows that humans were utilizing the properties of tobacco smoke long before civilization even began. How does a group of Ice Age hunter-gatherers even discover that inhaling a toxic plant feels good? The answer likely goes back to the campfire itself. The campfire was the center of all human life. It was where people cooked, slept, and gathered for warmth. When you're burning wood and brush every single night for thousands of years, you're going to accidentally burn everything in your environment. One night, someone throws a handful of wild tobacco leaves or wild cannabis stalks onto the fire to keep the flames alive. As the smoke fills the enclosed space of a cave, everyone inside starts breathing it in. Suddenly, the mood shifts. The exhaustion of the day fades. People feel more alert or more relaxed. The brain's pattern recognition kicks in. They notice which specific plant caused the shift. The next day, they go looking for it. But smoking wasn't just a casual pastime for ancient humans. It was a sacred, highly regulated technology. Across the ancient world, smoke was seen as a literal bridge between the physical world and the spiritual realm. If you want to talk to the gods, you send your breath up to the heavens in a visible, rising column of smoke. Move across the world to the mountain passes of western China. In the Pamir Mountains, archaeologists excavating a 2,500-year-old cemetery found wooden braziers containing stones that had been heated in fires. On those stones, they found the chemical signature of cannabis. The chemical analysis showed that these plants had exceptionally high levels of THC, much higher than the wild varieties growing naturally in the area at the time. This means the ancient people buried in these tombs were deliberately selecting mutated, high-potency plants. They would place the leaves on hot stones inside a closed tent, filling the air with thick, psychoactive smoke. The ancient Greek historian Herodotus witnessed this happening among the Scythians, a nomadic warrior culture. He wrote that they would howl with pleasure as they breathed in the smoke inside their felt tents. To them, the smoke was a funeral ritual, a way to commune with the dead and alter their consciousness to process grief.
In the Americas, tobacco took on an even more profound role. The tobacco used by indigenous peoples for thousands of years wasn't the mild, domesticated stuff found in modern cigarettes. They used a species called Nicotiana rustica, which contains up to 9 times more nicotine than modern commercial tobacco. In high doses, this kind of tobacco causes intense hallucinations and altered states of consciousness. For indigenous shamans, smoking this potent tobacco was a grueling, serious task. They didn't smoke for pleasure. They smoked to enter the spirit world, to diagnose illnesses, and to make decisions for the tribe. The smoke was believed to carry prayers to the Creator. It was used to seal peace treaties, which is where the concept of the peace pipe comes from. To break a promise made over a shared pipe was to invite the wrath of the spiritual universe. The plant was respected, feared, and treated with absolute reverence. It was a tool of extreme power, locked behind strict cultural guardrails. So, how did a sacred ritual practiced by Ice Age hunter-gatherers and ancient shamans transform into a global public health crisis? The shift happened with dizzying speed. When European explorers arrived in the Americas in the late 15th century, they saw indigenous people inhaling smoke from rolled leaves. The Europeans didn't understand the spiritual context, but they instantly felt the biological effects. They brought the plant back to Europe, and within a few decades, tobacco became the ultimate global cash crop. But the real transformation happened in the late 19th century with the invention of the automated cigarette rolling machine. Before this, every cigarette had to be rolled by hand, which kept consumption relatively low.
Suddenly, a single machine could produce millions of cigarettes a day. At the same time, the tobacco industry altered the chemistry of the leaf, curing it in a way that made the smoke less harsh and easier to inhale deeply into the lungs. They added chemicals to accelerate how fast nicotine reached the brain. We took a plant that ancient humans used occasionally in sacred settings under the guidance of elders, and we turned it into a mass-produced, chemically optimized commodity designed for constant, isolated consumption. We stripped away the ritual and kept only the addiction. When you look at the deep history of smoking, it reveals a fundamental truth about human nature. We are a species that has never been entirely satisfied with ordinary reality. For as long as we have been human, we have looked for ways to alter our consciousness, to shift our perspective, to blur the edges of the everyday world. Our ancestors found that shift in the darkness of caves, in the stories told around campfires, and in the strange, intoxicating smoke of wild plants. Today, when someone stands outside an office building on a cold afternoon, taking a quick drag from a cigarette or a vape, they are participating in a ritual that stretches back to the end of the last ice age. They are using the exact same neurochemical pathways that their ancestors discovered around campfires 12,000 years ago. We may have changed the tools, we may have turned the sacred into the mundane, but the underlying urge remains unchanged. We are still that same curious, defiant primate, staring into the fire, breathing in the smoke, and trying, if only for a few moments, to change the way it feels to be alive.